Welcome everyone to another episode of A Dark Tale, where the stories can get real dark real fast. So let's dive straight into it and roll the intro. So today we are not live, and the reason for that is because we are trying a new setup for you guys, and I'm sorry I couldn't post last week as I was down with a fever. So this week I hope I can give you 2 videos, but of course again no promises. And if you are new to the channel, do sit back, relax, and we tell you ghost stories submitted to us that I've added a bit of spice to it to bring the stories to life. And as always, if you want to submit your stories, do go down to our TikTok page, send us a DM over there and tell us your stories. Again, thanks for everyone who has supported the channel on all different platforms. We are on TikTok, we are on YouTube, and we are on Spotify as well. And why not, let's dive straight into the first story, right? So today the first story we have is about a group of friends that had their game night gone wrong. So let's dive straight into the story and see what happened on this specific game night that they went through. Let's cue the music and start our first story of the night. So hey guys, here is a story for the channel. This happened a few years back in Singapore, and honestly it's the main reason my friends and I completely stopped messing around with the paranormal. It was a random Friday night around midnight. There was 4 of us, myself and my 3 closest friends. I would just call them Adrian, Brian and Chris to keep their privacy, so they are not real names lah. We were sitting in my car, absolutely bored out of our minds, trying to think of something fun to do. As we were talking, Adrian was scrolling through TikTok. Suddenly he turned his phone towards us. He had stumbled across a live stream of a paranormal exploration channel where these guys were walking through a dark rural graveyard. Adrian gets this spark in his eyes and goes, guys, want to try like something different? Tonight, let's go on an adventure. Now, none of us have ever done anything like this before. We all had a bit of mixed feelings, a bit of excitement, but there's a lot of hesitation as well. But Adrian, he talked us into it. After a few minutes of intense persuasion, he managed to convince us just to try it at least once. After a quick discussion, we decided to go to Bukit Brown Cemetery. For those who don't know, it's one of the oldest, largest and most abandoned Chinese cemeteries in Singapore. I've been there before as well, but that's a story for another day. So during the drive there, the atmosphere in the car was tense. We were trying to figure out what we were actually going to do because we had no idea what to expect. Eventually we just agreed, you know what, let's just go there and feel the vibe and see what we can do. When we finally reached the area, the roads were pitch black and surrounded by thick jungle. I parked the car at the side of a narrow path and all 4 of us stepped out. We pulled our phone flashlights and started walking deeper into the cemetery. At first, honestly, it wasn't that terrifying. It was definitely creepy because of the rows of old crumbling graves coming out of the hills, but there was no immediate sense of panic. So after about 20 minutes of just walking around, the initial thrill started to wear off. We were getting bored, and that's when Brian chimed in. Guys, let's do a challenge. Why don't we go deeper into the graves, sit right among them and see what we actually feel like? Everyone liked the idea of the challenge, but nobody wanted to be the first. We started pushing around playfully and arguing and thinking who had to do it first. Finally we made a rule. Since it was Adrian's idea to come and Brian's idea to do the challenge, they were the first one that gets to sit down. So Chris and I would stand at a distance to keep watch. After surveying the area with our lights, Adrian and Brian found an old tomb that looked suitable to sit. They went over and sat down on opposite ends of the concrete grave structure. Chris and I turned off our flashlight to save a bit of battery and then walked a short distance away. So they were standing from afar and looking at them. So if I'm not wrong, Chinese cemeteries are like curve shape. So you can sit on both sides, I'm guessing. And in the middle is where they have sometimes the pictures and some maybe inscriptions. So they sat there in total silence for about 10 minutes, but nothing happened. Adrian got impatient. He whispered loudly across the grave to Brian. So Brian's on the opposite side. So they're closing their eyes and I think they are thinking like, why nothing happened, right? So he like, hey, why don't we close our eyes like we are meditating, and in our heads let's just call out to any spirits out here to make their presence known. So they did. They closed their eyes, sitting perfectly still in the pitch black. Another 15 minutes passed. Absolute silence. Adrian was just about to give up and open his eyes when he suddenly heard a distinct sound. Dry leaves rustling, followed by heavy, deliberate footsteps. To hear but to Adrian, the footsteps sounded completely human. Keeping his eyes closed so he wouldn't break the challenge, he leaned forward and whispered into the dark, "Is anybody there?" No response. Slowly, the sound of the footsteps faded away into the bush. But a minute later, an icy, unnatural gust of wind blew directly against the back of Adrian's neck. It sent a violent shiver straight down his spine. Immediately after the wind died down, the rustling noise returned, right next to him. Then Adrian felt a heavy hand press down onto his thigh. Assuming it was Brian trying to mess with him, Adrian kept his eyes shut and whispered. So he closed his eyes, then he said, bro, you're supposed to be further away from me. Don't come so close. We need to be further away. Let's keep to the challenge. Then he also said, you scared, is it? Don't worry lah, it's just a white animal. A wild animal, I mean. So he thought Brian was trying to get closer and closer to him because he was scared. So from right beside him, Adrian heard a low, muffled voice, the sound of like. Then the hand on his thigh shifted. It slid down, wrapping its fingers around Adrian's hand, holding it firmly. Adrian thought Brian was just terrified and seeking comfort, so he let it slide. After a minute or two, Adrian whispered, I think we can stay for one more minute, then we open our eyes. Then, with a raspy, low voice, right next to Brian's ears, he heard, "No." Adrian, still thinking it was Brian, he replied, he still thought it was his friend. He thought, what he said was, you want to stay longer? My body a bit tired already. Let's just get going after a while. But then the same voice answered back, "No." And then he let out a low, sickening chuckle. Suddenly, the grip on Adrian's hand violently tightened, shifting up to his wrist. The pressure was so hard that it actually started to hurt. Jolted by this sudden holding of hand, Adrian's eyes snapped open. He whipped his head around to scold Brian, so he wanted to turn and then say, "Hey Brian, what are you doing?" But there was absolutely nobody sitting next to him. The other side of the grave was completely empty. A wave of panic just hit Adrian. He spun around towards the path where Chris and I were supposed to be standing. Through the darkness, he saw 3 figures: Chris, myself, and Brian, standing right next to us. His face completely pale in the moonlight. Adrian scrambled off the tombstone and started sprinting towards us. He grabbed Brian by the shirt and then he said, "Brian, what the hell are you doing over here? Why you leave? Why you never tell me?" Brian was trembling so hard he could barely speak. He looked at Brian and told him what had actually happened. While they were both sitting with their eyes closed, Brian was actually the first one to experience something. He felt an invisible force violently grab the back of his neck, forcing his head down towards the dirt. Terrified, Brian fought the pressure, forced his head back up and opened his eyes. When he looked across the tomb at Adrian, Brian saw a distinct shape of a dark figure sitting directly beside Adrian, leaning in close. So Brian lost it. He didn't have the courage to shout. He just got up and walked. So that's probably when Adrian heard the walking away. That was actually Brian walking away. So, and for the last 5 minutes, the three of us had been standing on the path watching as Adrian sat there in the dark, talking, whispering and arguing in completely empty air. Adrian was furious at Brian for abandoning him, and Brian was frantically apologizing, tears in his eyes, explaining he was just too terrified to move or speak. But honestly, we didn't have time to argue. The realization of what had been holding Adrian hit us all at once. We ran back to the car, slammed the doors locked and drove out of Bukit Brown as fast as the engine would allow. We didn't stop driving until we reached a bright, crowded 24-hour mama shop surrounded by people and light. We sat there eating and talking until the sun came up, just trying to process the absolute dread we all felt. Thankfully, none of us experienced any follow-up disturbances or attachment after that night. But it's safe to say our amateur ghost hunting days started and ended on that exact same night, and we never went exploring again. So that was the story about the group of friends that wanted to go exploring and then try something out. Honestly, guys, I don't know if it's worth it or not, but I mean, definitely you can try it at least once in your life, but there is always consequences to your actions. So you gotta remember that when you go for ghost hunting, and if you want to try thrill-seeking stuff like this. So yeah, that was the first story, and my question is, would you guys go exploring or trying something out like this, going to a grave? Exploring is one thing, but going to a grave and technically summoning the spirit to come and talk to you is a totally different thing. So would you guys do it? That would be my question for you. So as we dive straight into the second story of the night, it's about, you know how your parents always tell you to never pick up random things you find on the floor, right? So this is a story from one of these guys, and why not we go straight into the story. So when I was younger, not me, but then the person who was telling the story, when I was younger, I used to think that they were being overly dramatic about picking random things up on the floor. So initially, I was just thinking that they are worried about germs. But after what happened to me back in secondary school, I will never ever touch anything on the ground ever again. It was a Friday, and since the weekend was starting, my two friends and I planned to go for a long bicycle ride after school. We went to school at Yishun. So around 3 p.m, we grabbed our bicycles and decided to cycle all the way down to Sembawang Park. Isn't that a bit far? I'm not sure, I don't stay in the north side. But anyway, we reached the park, chilled for a bit, and then the time hit 5 p.m. We decided to ride along the stretch of a road right by the sea. Eventually, we hit this quiet section right behind some big landed houses. We parked our bikes on the grass patch and left them there. So one of my friends pointed towards a thick, like the thick forest nearby, and suggested we walk in and find a quieter spot where there wasn't any people. As we walked closer to the trees, the vibe completely changed. It was getting close to 6:30, so the sun was about to set, and it suddenly felt abnormally cold. Like the temperature literally dropped the moment we stepped near the shadow of the trees. All three of us started to feel really uneasy. So after taking just a few more steps, we looked at each other and agreed it was time to head back home. But just as I turned around, I spotted something shiny in the dirt. It was a unique looking coin. It was way larger than a normal Singapore coin, and it had some strange old wordings engraved on it. I couldn't really make out. I bent down, I picked it up to show my friends. So he picked up and said like, "Hey, hi guys, you see what I just saw?" Then the moment they saw it, they panicked and shouted, "Bro, put it down, don't bring it near us, don't touch it also." But of course, I was stubborn. I told them, "Come on lah, it's just a coin, what's the worst that can happen? It's so far inside this forest, if someone lost it, right, it's already like, they forgot about it already." But my friends told me, just put it down back. But for some reason, I felt incredibly drawn towards it. It felt heavy and special, and I thought it was my lucky day. So against their warnings, I slipped it right into my school bag, and we cycled our separate ways back home. When I got home, I completely forgot about the coin. I threw my bag on the floor, took a shower, played some video games, and then went to sleep. That night, I had my first weird dream. It was a scary nightmare at first. It wasn't a scary nightmare at first. It actually felt quite welcoming. In the dream, I was standing in the middle of a strange, beautiful forest. An old man wearing traditional Malay clothes walked up towards me. He smiled and said, "Welcome to my place. I'm so happy you have come to me. It's been a very long time since I had anybody here with me." The vibe was really warm and happy. He turned around to grab something to pass to me, but just as he did, I felt a sharp "Wake up, wake up!" I opened my eyes, totally groggy, and I realized I was lying flat on my back on the living room floor with my hands folded tightly over my stomach. So he was like a corpse. My mom was standing over me, looking completely freaked out. She had just come She had just come out of her room to get a glass of water and found me sleepwalking. I was too tired to understand what was happening, so I just mumbled something, stumbled back to my bed, and then fell back asleep. The next day was a Saturday, so I woke up around 10 a.m, completely forgot about the sleepwalking incident, and my mum didn't bring it up either. So I went out about my day, enjoyed my day, and went back to bed at night as per usual. And immediately the exact same dream started again. Only this time the old man looked slightly annoyed. He looked at me and said it was because we got cut off the night before. I started asking some questions like how old he was. He looked at me with a strange expression and said he was very old, probably older than the oldest person I could ever know. Then he smiled again and said, "I have a gift for you, you must accept it." He turned his back to fetch the item, but right before he could hand it to me, "Wake up, wake up!" My mom was shaking me again. This time I woke up sitting upright, right at the entrance of my bedroom door, completely in the dark. On Sunday morning, my mom looked really worried. She sat me down and asked, "Where did you go on Friday?" I told her nowhere special. I just went to Sembawang Park with my friends. She asked me if I did anything stupid or did I touch anything or not. But I said no, I didn't. Then Sunday night came. The dream returned, but the warm, happy vibe was completely gone. The old man was furious. He turned around holding something in his hand and aggressively told me to take it. In a dream, I back away and say, no, it's okay, I don't want it. But he kept stepping closer, holding the thing behind him and then saying, nah, take this. He hold something in his palm and asked me to take it, saying it would help me. I told him no because he was still a stranger to me. Suddenly his voice dropped into a terrifying, deep, booming roar.
Take it now.
Right before my eyes, his face distorted. He transformed from a nice old man into a terrifying, angry being. And his eyes started glowing blood red. Before the entity could touch me, my mom forcefully shook me awake again. Wake up! Wake up! This time I was standing completely upright in the corner of my room, staring blankly at my school bag, rocking back and forth. My mom looked terrified but firm. She said, we need to settle this right now. She made me go wash my face up to wake me up properly, then dragged me into the living room. Tell me the truth. Did you pick something up from that park? Suddenly, a light bulb went up in my head. The coin. I had completely forgotten that it was still in my bag. I went to my room, dug out the strange coin and showed it to her. The moment she saw it, her face went completely pale. She got furious. She immediately called my dad. My dad took one look at the coin and said, in an hour, when the sun rises, we are going down to exactly where you found this. So the time passed and it was about 7 a.m. when my dad and I drove down to Sembawang. I walked him through the grass patch and pointed to the exact tree where I picked it up. My dad just sighed, shook his head and told me to place it exactly where it was. He told me to apologize out loud in the area. So I whispered a quick apology, put the coin down under the roots and we immediately walked away. On the ride back home, I was super confused. So I asked my dad, what was that all about? He looked at me with a serious expression and said, Sembawang is not a place for you to go fooling around, especially near those dense trees. That is where people go to get rid of unwanted barang. Or barang means like spiritual items. The hair on my arm stood up instantly. He told me the moment we got home, I had to take a full shower and cleanse myself. Later that afternoon, my mom finally explained why she kept waking up. She told me that for 3 nights straight, she kept having vivid dreams of my late grandmother. In the dreams, my grandma was urgently telling her to go check on me. Every single night, my mom would wake up from that dream, walk into the hallway and find me sleepwalking. She unknowingly intervened exactly at the moment the old man in my dream was trying to pass me the item. So my parents later explained to me that usually when we take these kind of items, the thing won't immediately get attached to us. These things, it won't bind itself to a new human unless the human consents to it. They are like manipulators, so they will try to use any kind of ways to make sure that you accept them. So they'll try to pass you an item, and if you willingly reach out and accept the gift in the dream, that would mean that I have accepted a spiritual contract, allowing the entity to latch onto me permanently. Needless to say, I learned the hard way that if you see something unique, valuable or strange lying around in especially quiet places, leave it alone. You never know if it was accidentally lost or if someone left it there to pass their darkness on to someone else. So I don't even know about this, what to say about this second story, but if you know anything about the spiritual realm or anything, right, you will know that you must not pick up anything that you see on the floor, because sometimes they are thrown there for a reason. It's not like they accidentally lose it. There might be times when people accidentally lose something and then you find it. But if you see weird inscriptions on something, if you see a red packet, if you see things that you have never seen before that looks a little bit weird, sometimes it's better to be on the safer side and not delve too deep into these kind of things, because if the thing attaches to you, then it's going to be even harder to chase the thing away, compared to how the person who submitted this story did it, because he just left it there, he apologized, and thankfully there wasn't anything happening after that. But if let's say he have accepted the gift, what would be happening of him right now? So that was our second story. And again, if you guys have any experience like this, do go to my TikTok page, DM me your stories. I will add in like a bit of conversations, maybe add in a bit of story, because sometimes I understand that not everyone is a storyteller. So if you tell me your story and it's like a short story, because not everyone can bring the exact feels into your storytelling. So sometimes the story can be simple as I was driving here, I was going here, I experienced this, then I went back home, and then I experienced disturbance. The timeline is what I will edit and then make it into a nice storytelling where everyone can hear and understand your story. So now we have come to our final story number 3 of Kampong houses, and I wanted this to be the last story because living in the city, I've never stayed at a Kampong before, and I don't know anything about staying in a Kampong or the experiences that comes along with a Kampong. So reading this person's story actually brings me into a sneak preview of how Kampong life is all about. It doesn't look fun. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, if one day I do have a chance to go and explore or stay in a Kampong house, then I would definitely try it out lah. But so you know, going to our third story, how people say like Kampong houses in Malaysia have a completely different vibe compared to anything we have over here. And they always have these old folk tales about something different, something new. And this is the story from this person. So let's dive in straight into the story. This is what happened to this guy that didn't tell me his name. So we'll just maybe read along the way lah. So I've been with my girlfriend Nurul for about 5 years now. On our first Hari Raya together as an official couple, her family invited me to join them for house visiting back in Malaysia. A lot of her relatives still live in traditional kampongs, and since I've stayed in HDB flats and modern apartments my entire life, I was super excited. I agreed almost immediately. They told me we will be staying at least one night over there, which I thought was awesome because I'll get to live the full authentic Kampong experience. So when the day came, we loaded up the car and we crossed the border. After what felt like a really long drive, we finally turned off the main road and hit a gravel path. So the moment we pulled up to the property, it was welcoming. Everyone was welcoming with open arms. The hospitality was incredible. So I'm guessing like, you know, when he go there, then everyone like, oh, hello, how are you? Who are like introduce himself, and then like everyone welcome him to the family as a new member lah. So I've never experienced this kind of warmth before. I introduced myself, unpacked, and we all later socialized. Later, the family even set up a small barbecue at the back of the house. It was seriously an eye-opening and fun experience. When night finally came, they brought Nurul and me to our sleeping quarters. It was actually her late grandparents' old wooden house, which was just a short walk from the main family home. Thankfully, the relatives have been kind enough to sweep up and clean the place a bit before we arrived. We changed our night clothes and headed to bed. It wasn't long before I heard everyone else in the house snoring, but I just couldn't sleep. I was still fascinated by the structure of the house, the wooden panels, the high ceilings. It felt so different from being in Singapore. Since everyone was dead asleep to the world, I decided to slide out of bed quietly and walk out to the main hall just to explore the place. So as I was walking around the hall exploring the place and walking towards the kitchen area, a sudden sound made me freeze. Someone was knocking on the main wooden front door. I hesitated at first, but then I figured it was probably just one of the uncles or cousins from the other house that might be needing something. As I approached the door, the knocking kept going. So as he was walking towards the door, he still heard a knock. And when he opened the door, it was pitch black outside. There was completely nobody there. But I muttered to myself, must be the wind. Trying to calm myself, I closed the door, locked it, and turned around to head back towards the bedroom. But just as I took a step towards my bedroom, my stomach gave a massive violent rumble. Out of nowhere, I needed to use the toilet real bad. Now, just to give you a picture of how the old Kampong houses are like, there is no toilet inside the building. So if you need to go, you have to step out of the back door and walk to a standalone concrete toilet hut a short distance away in the yard. I was honestly terrified of going out into the pitch black after that weird door knock. But when duty calls, fear gets thrown out the window. Armed with only a flashlight from my phone, he on his flashlight and he stepped outside. The night air felt incredibly heavy and still like nothing was alive out there. I hurried over to the concrete toilet and noticed the door was tightly shut. I really needed to go, so I knocked on the door and said, "Hello, anyone inside?" From inside the cubicle, I heard a low, muffled voice. "Oh, sorry, I replied. I stood outside and waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. At this point, my stomach was cramping up so badly I couldn't take it anymore. I lost my patience, stepped up and banged hard on the door. "Sorry, can hurry up? I really cannot hold it in anymore." The moment my hand hit the door, the last hit, it didn't just rattle, it slowly swung wide open. I was so furious and relieved I didn't even think. I ran straight inside, slammed the door shut, and let it all out. It was explosive diarrhea. Too much info, but after a few minutes, when the stomach pain finally started to ease up, my brain suddenly booted back into reality, and that's when I remembered the sound that came from inside the toilet when I was outside. A cold sweat broke out all over my body. I froze completely. If the door swung open and the toilet was totally empty, who the hell acknowledged me when I knocked? My heart started hammering. I slowly looked around inside a tiny concrete cubicle, but there was nowhere for a person to hide. Then I slowly tilted my head up towards the open gap between the top of the walls and the zinc roof. So I'm guessing at the top there's like ventilation holes where it's empty lah. So I looked up. My breath caught in my throat. There were 3 heads crammed together, peeking directly down at me. It wasn't just like they were standing on chairs or tiptoeing. It looked like they were abnormally tall, just looming over the roof line. I couldn't see their bodies in the dark, but their faces were pale, and they all had wide, bloodshot eyes staring right down into my eyes. I let out a loud shout and nearly lost my balance off the toilet seat because I'm guessing it's those squatting ones. So panic entirely took over. I washed myself up, yanked my pants up, slammed the door shut, and just started sprinting blindly back into the house. I burst through the door, panting like crazy, and ran straight into the room. Pulled the thick blankets and covered my head. I lay there shivering, waiting for my heart to stop racing. Finally, after a few minutes, I started to calm down a little bit under the sheets, and that's when I heard it again. This time, the sound wasn't coming from the front door. It was coming from the wooden window panels right beside my bed. Thankfully, the window was let shut, but the tapping kept going on and on the whole night. I spent the entire night curled into a ball, unable to blink. When the knock finally subsided right before the dawn, I gathered every ounce of courage I had left, crawled to the edge of the bed and peeked through a tiny gap in the wooden wall panels. Down in the yard, right below my window area, those three pale figures were still standing down there. They were looking straight up my window, just waiting. I jumped back, scrambled onto my bed and frantically started reciting every single prayer I knew until the sunlight finally broke through the trees. The next morning, I was a nervous wreck. I wanted to ask someone about it, but I didn't want the family to think I was crazy or being disrespectful. Because it's pretty sensitive, right? If you are in a city boy going to a kampong and complaining. Eventually, I spotted a relative around my age sitting outside, and I casually brought the weird vibe around near the back toilet last night. She stopped what she was doing, nervously looked around to see if anyone else was listening, and then just forced out a laugh. Probably just your imagination lah, don't think so much. Then she quickly grabbed her stuff and then walked away. I swear, the look in her eyes told me she knew exactly what lived in those woods. Thankfully, that was our last day there. I left the kampong without ever finding out about what those tall tree things were, and Nurul had absolutely no idea what I went through. I didn't tell her until a few weeks later because I didn't want her to feel scared or worried about her family home. That was the first and last time ever I stepped foot in that village. Now, whenever her family invite us back to the Kampong for holidays, I immediately tell them, sorry, I'm super busy with work, I cannot make it. No way I'm spending a single night over there again. So if like ever the father or something called him, right, then ask him in his phone. Hey, hello, hi again. You want to come over or not? No, it's okay. I got a lot of work to do. You sure? I thought you had a good experience previously. No, it's okay. I think we will just catch up another time. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like, if it was me, okay, honestly, if it was me, I would have tried to make sense of the experience and took my phone out and tried to take video lah, because that is the best video proof that you can have, right? Let's say even if you don't capture anything on video, like visually, at least there will be some audio, knocking or something. Because if you're a city boy living in the kampong, whenever you tell anyone that there is any kind of disturbances, firstly, they will think that you're not used to it, and second, maybe you are over exaggerating stuff. So either way, nobody is trusting you. So yeah, that was the third story about the kampong. Honestly, I've never ever stayed in a kampong, and I probably might not stay in a kampong because I'm more afraid of the animals that live there, like the snakes, the wild boars, than the ghost itself. I mean, I don't want to say that's too soon. I don't want to jinx myself, but honestly, I think it's an amazing experience to go and stay in those kampongs and live the vibe. And I think if you don't put yourself in these kind of scenarios where you are in the middle of the darkness, needing to go poop, and then experiencing this, if you are down there, don't look up, don't look down, don't look left, don't look right. Just do your business and then continue your day. So anyway, that was the 3 stories that we have for today. Again, this is not live, so I don't have any comments to read, or there's no things for me to go through. But we'll try this new setup today to see how the quality of the video is, because that was the most important thing that I wanted to try out this week. Change the setup a bit and then see the quality of the video. And honestly, guys, the main thing I want from you guys is just the support. Watch the video until the end, because this is the growing part of the channel. This is not the monetization part. This is not the building into a big brand kind of thing. This is just the beginning of a small growth. And thank you so much to all the subscribers, because I was losing some subscribers slowly, and then suddenly it shot back up after my last episode where we talk about the jinn ashik. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch the video about the jinns, the jinn that can fall in love with a human woman. And jinn is like a demon lah. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, go back and watch the episode. For all my new subscribers, thank you for watching. Thank you for staying tuned. Hope you guys love this new setup. Maybe it's a bit more clearer. Hope you love the new intro as well. And I hope to produce another video maybe a few days from now, and I'll catch you guys in the next video that comes out. I hope you guys do DM me your tales if you do have. This is a dark tale where your stories come to light. Thank you everyone for joining. See you guys in the next video.